Okay, so today we're diving deep into how content marketing really sits at the heart of a strong digital strategy. We've got a ton of fascinating sources here, and they all seem to point to the idea that content is really the engine that drives everything.
Yeah, absolutely. And what's so interesting is that it's not just like a side thing.
Hmm.
Content marketing is really the fuel that powers all your other efforts. How you get found online, how you connect with people, how you ultimately reach your goals. It all comes back to content.
Okay, so let's start with the basics. I mean, what exactly are we talking about when we say content marketing? Because, everyone throws that term around, but is it just like randomly posting stuff online?
Well, no, definitely not. I mean, it's way more strategic than that.
Right.
Content marketing at its core is about creating and sharing content, sure, but it has to be valuable, relevant, consistent. And all of that's geared towards attracting and keeping a specific audience. The ultimate goal is to drive some kind of profitable customer action. But the real key here is providing value first.
So it's more about attracting people with helpful information rather than just trying to hit them with a sales pitch right off the bat.
Exactly. Think about it like, I don't know if you've heard of the Furrow magazine.
Rings a bell.
Well, so this was way back in the 19th century,
Yeah,
and it was published by John Deere, the tractor company.
right.
And they offered farmers all this unbiased information, helpful stuff about agriculture and all that. It
Yeah.
wasn't about selling tractors directly. It was about providing value first, building a relationship.
That's a really interesting example, and it makes a lot of sense. So content marketing is all about that attraction, that providing value upfront. How does this fit into, we always talk about this kind of complex digital marketing landscape with SEO and social media and paid ads and all these different things.
Content marketing really acts as the link between all of those.
Yeah.
It's the linchpin. So think about your whole digital ecosystem.
Right?
You've got SEO, search engine optimization, which helps you get found when people search online. Then you have social media, which is all about engagement, connecting with your audience, building a community. You've got paid ads, which can really extend your reach and visibility. And then you have email marketing, which is fantastic for nurturing those relationships you're building. And get what? Your content, whether it's blog posts, videos, social media updates, infographics, whatever, fuels every single one of these channels.
Okay, that's really interesting because it's almost like we think about all these things as separate, but really content is kind of the glue that holds them all together.
Exactly. And it also highlights the difference between inbound marketing, where you're attracting customers by providing them with something valuable, versus outbound marketing, which is more about pushing a message out there, interrupting people rather than drawing them in.
Yeah, it's funny how we still see so much of that outbound marketing, but it feels like it's becoming less and less effective.
Well, people are getting smarter about tuning it out, and that's
Yeah.
why content marketing is so powerful, because you're meeting people where they are, giving them something they actually want.
Makes sense. So you've talked about how content kind of fuels this whole ecosystem, and one of the areas where it seems to have a really big impact is SEO, search engine optimization. How do we use content to make sure we're getting found online?
So the big thing here is that high-quality, keyword-rich content is the foundation of SEO. Like, if you understand what people are actually searching for online, what those keywords are, and you create content that directly answers those questions, you dramatically improve your chances of showing up in those organic search results.
So it's not just about stuffing a bunch of keywords into a blog post and hoping for the best.
No, not at all. I mean, that used to work, maybe, but search engines are so much smarter now. They can recognize when content is genuinely valuable and helpful, and they prioritize that. You want to think about organizing your content well, making sure it's written by experts, or at least clearly demonstrates expertise.
So it's really about establishing yourself as a credible resource on a topic rather than just trying to game the system.
Absolutely. And what's really fascinating is we're seeing a shift where search engines are actually favoring comprehensive content on a topic, even if it doesn't have the same density of individual keywords. So, instead of trying to rank for one specific keyword, think about becoming the go-to source for a whole cluster of related queries.
Okay, so it's more about building a knowledge base around a topic rather than just chasing individual keywords.
Exactly. And then, of course, there's backlinks.
Ah, yes, those endorsements from other websites, those are gold, right?
Absolutely. And the great thing is that, when you create truly valuable content, other websites will naturally link to it as a resource. And that sends a huge signal to search engines that your content is credible and trustworthy.
Makes sense. So we've got the keywords, we've got the backlinks, and then there's that whole EET thing that SEOs love to talk about.
Right. Experience, expertise, authoritativeness, trustworthiness. These are all super important for ranking well in search results. And consistently producing content that demonstrates these qualities is key. Plus, regularly updating your content shows search engines that your website is active and relevant, which they love.
Got it. So we're thinking long term here, building a solid foundation of valuable content. What about the actual format of that content, though? Are we still talking about like blog posts and infographics, or are there new things we should be thinking about in, 2024 and beyond?
Well, those are still relevant, but the landscape is definitely evolving. Short-form video is huge right now, especially on platforms like TikTok. Explainer images are also really effective for getting your point across quickly and easily. And of course, having a strong YouTube presence is still incredibly important.
Right, because YouTube is basically its own search engine at this point.
Exactly. And one strategy that's becoming increasingly popular is what we call cluster content. This is basically where you organize your content around core pillar pages and then link out to related, more specific subtopics. So you're creating a whole web of content that really dives deep into a particular subject area.
Okay, so we're getting a little more sophisticated with how we organize and connect our content. And this all ties back to SEO and making sure people can actually find that valuable stuff we're creating.
Absolutely. Now, moving beyond SEO, let's talk about social media because this is where content really comes to life.
Yeah, social media feels like it's all about content, right? I mean, those platforms are hungry for fresh, engaging stuff all the
Mm,
time.
exactly. And that's why a well-defined content strategy is so crucial for social media success. It's about planning what you're going to post, when you're going to post it, what your goals are. But at the heart of it all is still that valuable, helpful content. Because, social media is all about building relationships, showcasing your brand's personality, keeping people interested.
So how do we do that? I mean, are we talking about like behind the scenes glimpses, user generated content, interactive polls, all that kind of stuff?
All of that. Different formats spark different kinds of engagement, and it's all about experimenting and seeing what works best for your audience. But remember, one size doesn't fit all when it comes to social media. Each platform has its own unique vibe, and your content needs to be tailored accordingly. Like a short, attention-grabbing video might go viral on TikTok, but it might fall flat on LinkedIn. You need to know your platforms and create content that fits.
Right. So we're thinking about the audience and the platform and making sure our content resonates in that specific space.
Exactly. And don't forget about consistency and authenticity. If you're posting sporadically or your content feels forced, people will notice. You need to show up regularly, be yourself, and tell your story in a genuine way.
So it's a long-term game, building that trust and that relationship with your audience.
Absolutely. Now, let's shift gears a little bit and talk about email marketing. I know it might seem like an older tactic, but it's still incredibly powerful when done right.
Yeah, I feel like email sometimes gets overlooked in the age of all these flashy social media platforms, but I get so many emails every day, and most of them go straight to the trash. So how do we actually make email marketing work in this content-driven world?
Well, the key is to make sure your emails are actually providing value. Remember those lead magnets we talked about?
Yeah.
Offering something valuable like an ebook or a guide in exchange for an email address is a great way to start building your list. And then once you have people's attention, you need to keep them engaged with regular newsletters that offer curated content, maybe some relevant industry news, things they'll actually find interesting and useful.
So it's about giving people a reason to actually open those emails and look forward to what you have to say.
Exactly. And email is also a fantastic channel for promoting your other content, like webinars and videos.
Yeah.
You can kind of use it as a hub to drive people to all these different places where you're providing value.
Makes sense. So we're creating valuable content, we're using email to promote it, and we're making sure that those emails are actually something people want to read. What about paid advertising? How does content fit into that part of the digital strategy?
It might seem counterintuitive, but
Mm.
content can actually make your paid advertising way more effective. So think about it like this. When your ads and the landing pages they link to offer genuinely valuable and relevant content, your ad quality scores go up. And that means your costs can actually go down.
Wait, so by creating better content, we can actually save money on advertising?
Exactly. And on top of that, compelling content on those landing pages is much more likely to turn clicks into leads. People are much more likely to give you their information if they feel like they're getting something in return.
Yeah, that makes total sense. So it's not just about getting people to click on the ad, it's about what happens after they click.
Precisely. And think about retargeting campaigns, which are those ads that follow people around online after they visited your website. If you're showing those people highly relevant content, something that speaks directly to their interests, you're way more likely to re-engage them and ultimately convert them into customers.
Right, so it's about using content to create a more personalized and effective advertising experience. What about visuals? I mean, we live in such a visual world now. How do we use images and videos and all of that to make our content even more engaging?
Visuals are absolutely crucial, especially in a world where people are constantly bombarded with information. So think about using things like videos and infographics in your social media ads. Those are much more likely to grab attention and drive click-throughs than a plain text ad. And don't forget about things like high-quality images on your website and in your blog posts. Visuals can make your content more memorable, more shareable, and just more appealing overall.
So we've talked about SEO, we've talked about social media, email marketing, paid ads. It seems like content really does touch every aspect of our digital strategy. But stepping back for a minute, how does all of this content creation ultimately contribute to building a strong brand?
Well, consistent, high-quality content is the foundation of any strong brand. It helps you reach a wider audience, establish yourself as an expert, and build trust and credibility over time. And it's not just about the content itself, but also about the way you present yourself.
Mm.
Brand authenticity is huge. You need to be true to your values and let your personality shine through. And encourage internal advocacy. Get your team excited about sharing your content. And remember, brand building is a long-term game. It takes time and consistent effort to really make an impact.
So it's about being patient and playing the long game. What about standing out from the competition? I mean, everyone's creating content these days. How do we make sure our content is actually getting seen and heard?
That's a great question. I think it's about finding your unique voice, offering a fresh perspective, and maybe even being a little bit controversial. You don't want to be afraid to shake things up and challenge the status quo. And of course, quality is key. If your content is truly valuable and well-produced, it will naturally rise to the top.
So it's about finding that sweet spot between providing real value and also being interesting and memorable.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to experiment. Try different formats, different styles, and see what resonates with your audience.
So we're creating all this amazing content, we're building our brand, we're getting found online. But at the end of the day, a lot of businesses are really focused on generating leads and driving sales. How does content marketing help us achieve those goals?
Content marketing is actually an incredibly powerful tool for lead generation. It's about attracting those potential customers who are genuinely interested in what you have to offer, capturing their information, and then guiding them through the sales process. Remember those lead magnets we talked about? Those are key for getting people to give you their contact information.
Right, so we're offering something valuable in exchange for that email address.
Exactly. And then, once you have their attention, you need to keep providing value, nurturing that relationship, and ultimately guiding them towards a purchase.
So it's about building that trust and then showing people how your product or service can solve their problems.
Precisely. And thought leadership content is huge here. If you can position yourself as an expert and a trusted advisor, people are more likely to buy from you.
And it all comes back to content. It really is the foundation of everything.
Exactly. Content marketing is not just about creating a few blog posts or sending out some tweets. It's a holistic strategy that impacts every aspect of your digital presence. By consistently providing value, you attract the right audience, build trust, and ultimately achieve your business goals.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I think the takeaway here is that content marketing is not just an afterthought, it's the core of everything.
Absolutely. And it's about so much more than just creating content for the sake of creating content. It's about understanding your audience, providing real value, and building relationships that last.
Awesome. Well, thanks for breaking all of that down for us. It's been a really insightful conversation. And for everyone listening, think about how these principles might apply to your own business. What kind of valuable content could you be creating to better connect with your audience and fuel your overall digital success? This deep dive has hopefully given you a clearer understanding of just how vital content marketing really is. What questions does this raise for you as you think about your own strategy going forward?